Hi, everyone. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in the following podcast belong solely to the host and its contributors. They are not necessarily the views of our employers, organizations, committees, or other group or individual.
I'm David Campbell,
And I am Jordan Bullock.
And I'm Joseph Whitney. This is Brewing with BIM.
where we talk about construction processes, technology, BIM, and beer.
It's crazy. This started as water cooler banter and is the #1 BIM podcast. I get recognized. It's crazy. Like, we don't even record video or anything, but somebody's like, "Oh, you're Joe Whitney. Do you do the podcast?" I'm like, "Yeah." So I mean, it's cool, man. I like that it's taken on a life of its own. Yeah, yeah. BIM famous is a different level of famous. It's a very niche community.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's big and it's growing and it's necessary and it's needed, and so that's great.
Yeah.
Heck
Well,
yeah.
you, on the other hand, you are really famous. I can't talk to anybody about point cloud scanning, whatever, without them saying, there's this guy on LinkedIn, and he's got great stuff.
Trying. That's the goal, I really started realizing over the years one of my strengths being just networking and brand building, and I follow a lot of other, social media influencers and other people in other industries, and over time I was like, there's nobody like that in our industry. There's really, out of all of construction, who is a big known figure that has influence, that can share, that can educate like someone else can in podcasting or in conferences or in real estate or in social media. And I was like, there definitely should be some people doing that. There's a lot of power. There's a lot of, ways to build community and educate and make impact. And I was like, all right, we're going for it.
Yeah, there's definitely some big names like that draw for conferences, but nobody doing it on a social media presence or throwing their own conference, obviously. Like, it's mostly like they're just a big draw at another conference.
Yeah. Well, and the example I always throw out, I ask people, I'm like, do you know who Gary Vaynerchuk is? Do you guys know who Gary Vaynerchuk is?
No?
Gary V,
Yes, sir.
Of course.
So most people in our industry would say they have no idea who that is. I literally, because of how much I had followed him and things that I've learned, and I asked from stage at my conference last year with hundreds of people in the room, there was like 10 people that raised their hand that they even knew who the name was. And I was like, that shows how even some of the most influential influencers on social media aren't impacting everybody. As big as Gary V is, how many followers does he have on LinkedIn or on Instagram? Or it might be like 10 million, 15 million, something like that. How many people are in the construction industry in the US? Or how many people are in the US in whole? Like, the actual amount of people that know him and follow him, compared to the people that could be reached is actually not huge. And then you get industry specific, and it's like, there's nobody like that really in our industry. Like you said, there's big names. There's people that it's like, okay, the leader of, these big companies will draw a name or something, but are they continuing to create content and educate and build social and build following? It's almost non-existent.
Yeah, I think like a Paul F. Aubin or Lynn Allen or somebody who like draws a name, might write a blog post every now and then, but they're not doing Instagram post or LinkedIn content creation, which is a shame because it's never been easier to create content. There's, we're starting to get into not just using AI like everybody else is, but actually like doing some automation and setting up some stuff. Like, it'll break down your videos and give you chunks and segments and give you your shorts, and like, it just does everything for you. It'll write all your transcripts and tell you your next post. You can schedule your posts, and there's just so much out there. It takes a little bit of setup, but once you get there, it's pretty crazy where it's going. And to your point earlier, so Gary V, 10, 15 million followers, right? The construction industry accounts for about 25% of the U.S. labor, directly or indirectly. And of that 25%, I'd probably venture to guess that maybe less than 2% know who Gary Vee is or follow him.
Yeah, exactly. So I started realizing that, and I was like, what I started to really realize was, okay, all these people that are following me, that are like giving me all this feedback about what I'm doing, it really clicked in my head then that I was like, I am becoming the Gary Vee to those people who don't follow anyone like that. So the ability that I have to share and inspire and give feedback and give advice and bring on guests, and like I can make the same impact on our industry that isn't following someone like that. And I can bring things that I learn from others and start to distribute it within our industry.
That's like 3 full-time jobs in one, by the way.
Yes. And then, put on a conference and whatever else.
Yeah, your conference, everybody talks about. Like they say it is. So I'm good friends with Rob Sinclair and Carlos Caminos and all those guys. They say great things. One, you're doing something for the industry that people have tried to do, but it just never really grabbed. But two, you're actually creating an awesome experience for the attendees, not just like, puff piece conference, sessions essentially.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. When I decided to try a conference, I took the time to like sit and just brainstorm around what are all the things that I love about going to other people's events. What am I seeing from events that I've gone to that aren't even in our industry? What am I learning about community building? And, from following Grant Cardone and Gary Vee and Lewis Howes and like all these other outside of our industry. Then I take the experience of going to conferences within our industry and I'm like, what are all the things that I dislike about going to them? What are the feedback I'm getting from other people? And I'm designing our event to be a mix of just all the good stuff. I'm like, for example, one of the things that I just continue to hear people like kind of unhappy about is most conferences break out and do tons of little classes, right? So you get selected to be a speaker. You get a presentation slot at whatever conference. And so you end up in this little room somewhere that people have a hard time finding. And then there's only 50 seats or whatever, and it's packed and no one else can come in. And so your impact is kind of small. And if you're attending, you have to look at the whole agenda and pick and choose like, shoot, I wanted 2 classes. They're at the same time. There's just complexity around that piece. And I was like, I really want to do something completely different. And we're taking kind of a TEDx style approach. We don't do breakouts in classes. The whole event is one stage. And then we cultivate a diversity of what technologies, what type of case studies, different panel conversations from, survey and accuracy to digital twins and metaverse to women in AEC and technology and everyone that comes has to listen to the whole cultivated, conversations that we're saying, hey, we think this would be a good agenda. And they don't even have to pick a class. They don't have to miss a class. And if there's ones that it's like, hey, I don't really have interest in this one. Maybe it's a little outside my industry. You can either still sit and listen and maybe you'll learn something new and it'll inspire something that you didn't know was possible. Or you could step out and go out to the vendor area and network and stuff. That's like one big difference. I think the second biggest thing that, like you're saying about kind of trying to make it a good experience for the people attending is I go to all these other events and, they all try to do some type of like networking or some type of happy hour, but usually it's like an hour. You did all your classes, you did all your keynotes, you get to the end and there's this little 1 hour window, you get one drink, you try to find a few people and then they're like, all right, happy hour's over. And then everyone leaves and you're like, wait, who's going where? What bar are we meeting at? What restaurant do we go to?
Who's got the party?
Yeah. And, the biggest value that most people get from going to conferences, the presentations are great. Looking at technology at vendors is great. But what is the number one thing? It's actually building relationships like with those people and or finding people that would be collaborators or clients in order to build your business, to have contacts to reach out to. That happens during the networking, during the fun times, during the after parties. but the events kind of shut down at that point. And so that's where I'm like, hey, we're not shutting the venue after the conference is over. So we get done with all of our presentations during the day. We do dinner in the venue, and then we immediately turn it into happy hour and entertainment from 6 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. We have live music. We have cornhole tournaments. We have poker night and casino night. And we keep the whole community there to build relationships and hang out with each other. And that's where the real relationship building happens, that then leads to building real contacts, building trust with people, having deeper conversations about what they're doing. And, just like they say, right, business is done on the golf course. It's because it's a lot easier to really relate with people and connect when you're now off, you take the tie off, right? You're done presenting. Now you're relaxed, you're hanging out, you're being open, you're having fun together. That's why I'm like, that is one of the most key pieces. And I think most conferences could improve that aspect and make a big difference.
Oh, 100%. Being off guard, like everybody, like just, not trying to talk at each other, but actually having conversation and being relatable. That's where business is done. I'm in my day job as I fell into sales accidentally. I was a technical guy and got into sales, and I hate salespeople. I can't stand them. So the whole thing is like, well, I don't want to sell to you. Let's just be friends. And if you want to buy from me, that's great. Same thing with going to these conferences. I don't want to spend an hour, trying to pitch my company. Like, let's get to know each other. And if we're a good fit, we're a good fit. If not, that's the way it is. And to your point about everybody hanging out for 4 hours afterwards and actually getting to know each other in a room, I think Autodesk University could really take a note from you, man. Like that's the way to do it, I think.
Yeah. And I'm sure there's challenges when you get to that size too. Like I go to AU almost every year, and I'm sure there's challenges with like, how long can we book a place? And then the venue itself is like got their policies. And I remember going, last year, and it's like everyone's hanging out. Some people got there late because they went out to dinner. And when they shut down, everything turns off. Yep. You are kicked out. You can't hang around. You can't linger, and it's like, dang, at that point you kind of lose everybody. People are going different directions. And so, again, I'm sure that I'm not an event expert, but at least at a smaller size event or a mid-size event, I think there's more flexibility in how you handle that. And again, I think it makes a big impact on people.
Well, I think you are going to be at that size in no time, to be honest, man. Like you guys, what were you expecting? Something like 600 people this year? It was a big number.
Yeah. It's, that's another challenge, right? We're building something new. We're changing every year. There's more people getting involved, more people giving feedback. It's really hard to even plan for because a lot of people wait last minute and buy their tickets. If you ask anybody in events, at least from the feedback I've gotten, they're like, it doesn't matter if you tell people a year in advance, they're going to buy like the last month or the last 2 months. So it makes it challenging, but we expect somewhere between 600 and 900.
Oh, wow. Are you doing, I haven't looked at, we're a vendor, so I don't look at the way that people purchase, but is there like an early bird special for registering early and that, try to drive that earlier attendance? Okay.
Yeah.
Did that help or?
Nope. No, what I think, and this is something, again, I've never done events. I'm like, what is help? What do people want? I think most companies are like, you know what? I don't care if I save $100 or whatever. Like, I think the reason most people wait is that they really don't know their agenda. They don't know their schedule. They're, a lot of these guys that come are surveyors or engineers, or they probably wait till they get closer and they're like, okay, I have capacity, cash flow's good. My projects are on board. I'm okay to go now. I think a lot of them plan to come, but they just don't want to commit until it's right up there.
Yeah, almost need a pre-commitment, sort of thing, like register so that, your spot is saved or something.
Yeah. We're brainstorming that and we're like, okay, there's got to be some way to start getting a better count. Because, man, from event planning, it is a challenge. I mean, and it's just me and one other person really helping with really when it comes to the organization of it. And it's like, we have to have plans for meals and food and merch count and handouts and drinks. And it's like, well, shoot, if it's 400 people, or if it's 1,200 people, those are it's a lot of variation in planning and ordering, and so it's challenging. Events are not easy.
Yeah, you'll run into issues, I'm sure, like last year you mentioned Autodesk University, food shortages and that sort of stuff. Yeah,
ran out of food.
Yeah, we were there, and it was all right. Like, we go to AU every year, and this year we've got a pretty big booth. Excited that it's back in Vegas. I think a venue or a location like Vegas probably offers a little bit more flexibility than, say, a place, like New Orleans or Nashville or whatever. Like, they're prepared for those changes. That said, you're in the most beautiful state of all, with the least amount of natural disasters. Well, it's Idaho. I literally looked at the stats
he's
the other
on the
day.
blue field. They're going to have the conference on the blue field, dude. I mean, that's awesome.
Our casino night is up in the BSU Stadium skybox. It's all windowed around it. You can see Boise and the blue field, and it's going to be fun.
Awesome.
Oh,
that's
man,
awesome.
Dave. So they asked me who should go, and I said, let's just get some people that's from around there. And then they were immediately like, hey, so Dave or you? And I'm like, no, just get somebody local. I didn't even think about it. Like, you and I should have totally went.
That'd be awesome.
Look, it's never too late. Y'all want to come? Let's figure it out.
Right. No, dude, I completely agree with your statement there. Like, relationships in our industry. I mean, I feel like in this world in general, relationships are at the core of how we do business, of how we interact with each other. And these conferences, they can be a great place to really enable that, to make these connections, to have conversations with people that you normally, because I mean, you think about it, LinkedIn is a great environment. Facebook, all these other social media environments, they're great, but at the same time, they're siloed. You know what I mean? A lot of times if you're not on my network, I'm not seeing what you're posting. I don't know who you are. Just kind of like you were saying earlier.
Yeah.
And if we can, just meet randomly at this conference, and we're randomly sitting down at this table together and start having a conversation, that relationship, that initial conversation and the relationship that you build there, even if it's not much, if it's just, hey, yeah, I saw you do this, or this is an introduction of your name, the next year, the next time you see that person, they know who you are. You started something, and it builds off of that. And it's great. It really is, especially for, people in our industry just trying to learn. Because I mean, shoot, that's what we're all trying to do at this point is to learn from each other, see what you're using, how are you using it, how has it affected your business, and what outcomes have you seen from it? And we're all trying to get.
Oh, well, that, and also being connected with somebody on LinkedIn only goes so far, right? You and I have been connected for years. I outside of some initial LinkedIn messages, we probably haven't had much communication. And when you interact with people, like it makes it's different, right? It's different than just following somebody.
Well, and I see it firsthand in the fact that I have a ton of people I'm connected with on LinkedIn. I have 30,000 followers, and yet finally there's people that are coming for the first time that I've never met in person. Again, can I have a real relationship with 30,000 people that are on my LinkedIn? No. What takes it to that next level of me actually connecting and actually maybe working on a project together or buying something from them is, okay, out of those 30,000 people, who do I get to see face to face, shake hands with, hang out with, have a drink with, talk about with, learn about what they're doing? I can't take the time to set up that type of interaction, even virtually, with all of my contacts. And so in person is like, look, you want to make that next level? Show up,
Yeah.
That's it, David. We're throwing a conference.
Do it at the brewery.
Oh, right at the brewery.
At the brewery, yes.
Brewing and BIM conference. Yeah. Well, and the other part that's I can't get this out of my head because you're talking about social media. You're talking about you can't see people's stuff even if you're if you're not connected with them. You don't even see stuff if you are connected. That's a part that I'm like, it's annoying. Play the algorithm game and whatever social decides to push your stuff. And out of the 30,000 people that I have, I might get certain posts of mine, maybe only 2,000 views, maybe only 50 interactions. So a lot of people that see my stuff consistently, they might be like, my gosh, can you shut up already? Every post you're talking about your conference, you're talking about this. And it's like, well, I have to post that much, or else people that want to come may never even see it, because it's all about when do they get on? When are they not on? Who liked it? Who in their network liked it? So you have to do a lot of volume on social to even really reach your whole community.
Yes.
That's good words of wisdom there. Like I'm happy when I get 2,000, views. I'm like, oh, finally, this one actually, is somewhat successful. Anything other than that, it's like, well, I guess a lot of people weren't interested, or maybe it wasn't good, or maybe the algorithm wasn't for me that day, which is weird though, because a post one day, the day I post it, like 200 views. 3 weeks go by, and now it's up to randomly gets a spike, and it's at 6,000 views. It's like, what algorithm? Like, how do I play this? It doesn't matter what hashtags I use. It doesn't matter who I tag in it.
Well, we also realized that if you reshare something, it actually doesn't. What was it, Joey? If you share it originally, you actually
you got to share originally.
Exposure.
It's better. Otherwise, if a repost doesn't work for you,
it doesn't work as well. You don't get as many exposures or as many views.
They've changed it completely. It doesn't even really work for you. It works for the original person, but not for you.
And that is, one of the things I've learned from people over the years regarding just marketing and social in general is like the best thing you can do if you're building a community, you're building an audience, is get it off the platform. And that is part of what we're doing with RCN. Is like, we're building our own website with our own education center, with our own content, with our own behind the scenes stuff, so that if people want to watch it, they have to sign up there. Now I have your email or your phone number, or because what happens if for some reason my LinkedIn gets banned, or what happens if they go out of business and they close their platform, or, something else comes out and now everybody moves to that and my whole audience was there and that's what I was relying on. So diversifying where your audience is, taking them with you somewhere, getting them off of it if they're true, followers that have interest in some way, is really valuable for people.
And then you can control how they consume the content too, which is great. Because a lot of times I find with these different platforms, I like Instagram, but I've stayed away from it for the most part. Twitter's been hit or miss, lately. But the way that each platform wants content and each has trained their consumers to consume content is drastically different. But if you have your own platform, you're kind of locking them into your hey, this is the best path for your content. This is the way to do it. I do want to pick your brain on the education side for a minute, if you don't mind. So you're wanting to build a community on your own platform, your website, which is admirable. It's great. As somebody who's gone down the e-learning path, I commend you. It's actually one of the I don't know, like everybody's kind of resorting to prepaid bought classes that are all made by the same manufacturer these days, and that gets a little rough. You guys creating your own content, you kind of get a little more control of the content that's being delivered. Updating content's never fun, but you guys are doing it day in, day out, so it should be a problem. Have you found like the best platform for actually developing it is like an Absorb LMS system? Is there like any one that you guys have kind of leaned towards?
I will say, some of that we still need to iron out. Our short term, we have goals and we have a small team and we have some stuff that we're in the process of developing. Some of it is still a roadmap ahead of us. When it comes to the education center we have now, it's within our custom built website that we've developed our own platform. Right now, it's not really a full LMS. It's really like you have to log in to access videos, but then you can go watch presentations from last year and case studies and webinars. From here forward, the goal truly is to create actual training material, actual courses on different technologies, different deep dives, collaborating with other creators or industry experts and helping them create courses within our platform. And we have some conversations going on with potentially partnering with some other companies that are already further along in the e-learning process. My goal with our education center and our training material is not to go out and try to recreate or compete with somebody else who maybe already has classes on, BIM and CAD and whatever. But there's like no classes anywhere that you can take to actually learn detailed, except maybe some that industries, manufacturers have themselves, of like best practices for laser scanning and drone flights and data processing and control integration and scan to BIM workflows and all of these deep technology specific things. There's not a lot of training around. You can't go get much. You got to find some consultant, or you got to find somebody who just does it well and get help. So we really want to create an education platform around all the new technologies in order to try to help actually train people, get them up to speed. And I don't know if we for sure will, but we're talking about even trying to take it a step further in universities are trying, some of them have BIM programs or they have construction management programs, but I think we're still a ways away from the education sector, like thoroughly training on some of these technologies too. So we're talking about, what if we create a month-long like deep dive in laser scanning, and it's, someone makes a new hire, they send them out to us. There's a funding program. They pay whatever the fee is, like if you're going to a trade school or something, and we will train a new hire to be here for a month or 2 or 3, whatever that looked like, and they leave as a scanning technician. That doesn't exist. The demand for these technologies is growing. Nobody's training people. Everyone who does scanning now has to do it the hard way and like take our own time to try to train people, train them on the job, lose time, And so as the demand grows and nobody's really coming out trained from anywhere, the increase for the needs are there. So there's a lot we want to do on the education side.
So a few points on that. I agree wholeheartedly, 100%. A certification of some sort or a path to career for a new hire or something like that, getting them spun up so they know how to get there from day one is huge. And I'm with you on the vendor side, like they're very vendor specific. They're like, well, this is how you set up our device. This is how it's very vendor specific. It's not a very broad.
And a lot of people got to read like the user manual to figure out kind of how, like a book, and you got to go through and figure out kind of where that, where.
Well, and it doesn't teach you about laser scanning in general, right? It doesn't teach you, that sort of stuff. But the other part of that is, we run into a lot of scenarios where somebody who's never done laser scanning, a company, not a person, but a company, and they, may be a little bit apprehensive about taking on laser scanning because, hey, look, it's a $40,000 scanner minimum, going up to 100,000, depending on what you want to capture, how fast it is, that sort of stuff. You're asking us to take on investment and a new hire, and we don't have a use case. We think we know how we, like to use it. Maybe we've done laser scanning on our project, but now we have to find a way to train somebody who has no experience, because good luck finding somebody that isn't, doing all right for themselves and pretty comfortable in their job, because they're few and far between.
On the flip side of that coin, we also have companies that will invest and they'll buy a scanner. And then we've seen that it will end up sitting on a shelf because they're not training to use it, or they're too busy and they'll get to it when they can. Man, I remember somebody had like 3 or 4 drones that they had purchased and they were sitting on a shelf, and I'm like, man, that's insane. I just don't understand to invest in it. You have to use it.
Yeah, I know someone with $1 million mobile laser scanner sitting in a closet. Like it still happens today, because again, I think I think most of the problems in our industry around these technologies come down to me, education. Educating clients on, should you do this internal? What volume of work do you have? What type of work do you do? based on that type of work, what type of device should you have? What goes into building a division internally more than just buying the equipment? Well, it's the personnel, it's the training, it's the computer processes, how much IT space, the storage. Like most people don't have the full picture. They just see, okay, buy a scanner, we can do our own scanning. So sometimes that happens. They realize it's too much. They cancel it. They put the gear in the closet, and now they outsource their work. And then even on the service provider side, there's people who, if they get started today, they have no idea what gear they should buy. They don't know the workflows. They don't know how to attack, a house-sized job versus an airport-sized job. And so we also see a lot of projects getting done poorly because they're doing bad workflows and the data comes out bad. And that causes issue to the client. And now the service provider has a bad taste in their mouth. So to me, education in whole solves all of that. If we can pull together the experts who actually already have those answers, they've gone through these headaches. I've screwed up jobs the last 13 years. So now I have enough knowledge to say, I can promise you, I could lay out a plan on how to successfully capture any job. I don't care what size it is. I know what gear we can use. I know what workflow. I know control processes. Now, the adoption rate is still a huge, spike up right now. All the companies that are getting started today don't know where to start. So now I'm saying, with this education center, with this community, with the presentations at our conference, let's have the guys who have been doing this for 4, 5, 10, 12 years come and share case studies. How are they using technologies? What's working? What's not? What are the pain points? What are the struggles? And then create the educational content and the courses to help people avoid the same headaches that we've already gone through the past 10 years. And so we can help the whole industry stop hitting the same headaches and actually start improving and starting off on a better foot as that adoption curve is growing.
Yes, sir. I completely agree with you. I mean, the only thing I would add there is, in all honesty, from what I've seen, is a lot of times when people get into scanning, they also need to have an idea of the end, or the goal of why they're going down this path, right? How are they going to use the point cloud, the laser scan data in itself? Are you using it as built-in? Are you going to floor plan off of it? Are you actually trying to draft off of it? Are you going to take it into a design program? Are you going to take it through something like Edgewise, Clear Edge 3D Edgewise, and recreate BIM objects or, pipes? Or are you analyzing based off of, let's say we have a design model and we want to see what was installed or the job progress? There's so many different ways that we can go with that, the laser scan in itself. And I think that's a huge thing that a lot of people have not realized yet, is actually the value of that point cloud. But again, it's what you're going to do with it. If you're going to invest that much in that piece of equipment, how can that data that it outputs benefit you and your company, your processes, and what you would deliver? How can this help you?
You could almost make that a survey, like a little quiz, like, how are you going to use this job? What do you want to get out of it? And you select multiple choice. And then at the end, it gives you like an analysis of like, I recommend blah, blah, blah. That'd be pretty
cool.
I don't know.
Yeah. And I think that whole conversation around the use of the data is also one of the biggest areas for improvement, because the history of laser scanning, 10 years ago and the past 5 years, the majority of the use was go to a building or go to a facility and scan it because we want an as-built. That was like the main use. Now it's growing to like, okay, well, now there's several different softwares that you can actually analyze the floor flatness. Now there's a software you can compare the point cloud to the BIM model. Now there's an online viewer that you can give your whole project team to see photos. And so on top of just scanning, now there's like 8 different things. Now, again, comes back to education. If you as a company right now pretend you knew nothing about scanning, where the heck do you start? Who do you learn from? What resources do you find to educate you on what scanner to buy, how to use the data, the different platforms, the workflows to train you on taking it from control to you Google yourself for 10 years, bang your head against the wall. It just, so my whole vision with this education center is like, look, it's going to take time for this to really become what I want it to be. But I want personally, I wish I had this to go to as I'm building a scanning business, a survey company, and say, show me like workflows and case studies and like what software goes to what. If my beginning goal is this and my end goal is that, what else can I do with the data? What are my options? What are the pros and cons of going with that one versus this one? You know, nothing like that exists. And I think it would help the adoption scale. It'd help us sell more gear. It'd help us sell more service. It'd help the projects go better, getting the right projects, you know, with the right technology. I think it fixes a lot of problems, even though it is a big undertaking to try to do.
Oh, it is.
Well, Matt,
100%.
you just gave us a
It
good
does.
segue. So you had mentioned building your own company. Now is probably a good time. What are you drinking there, man?
Idaho Sockeye IPA.
All right.
Ooh, nice.
Dave, what are you drinking, man?
Oh, dude, I got a Buffalo Trace Old Fashioned, sir.
Dude, I'm jealous. I can't find Buffalo Trace to save my life. Rob Sinclair's probably stockpiled 50 bottles deep at this moment. He's got like 200 bottles of more than 200 bottles of whiskey. It blows my mind. I'm drinking some Fatheads Brewery. It's called Jupiter Tangerine.
Ooh,
it's all right.
Good.
There you go.
Yeah, it's not bad. Jordan, are you drinking anything, my friend?
No, sir. I am 0 for 14 on this podcast at this point.
You are horrible.
I know. Hey, you got these right at the end of my day.
Brewing with BIM. Either make your own beer, drink a cold brew, or get some alcohol, my friend.
Look, I was afraid. I was like, I gotta go grab something. I might get kicked off if I don't have a drink.
We had these guys from Hong Kong on, and it was like 9 a.m. their time. We're like, oh, you know what? We'll drink beer. Maybe we won't say what are you drinking because they might not be drinking. Sure enough, 9 a.m. they're all drinking, dude. It was awesome.
Hey, that's part of the show. It doesn't matter what time it is.
Yeah. Well, now that we've got that out of the way, tell us a little bit about your company, man, and how you got started.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'll try to give some bullet points. You know, I grew up in a surveying family, so my dad was a licensed land surveyor, and you know, it wasn't a career I knew I was going to pursue. In fact, when I was younger, I was really into sports and music. And I won't go too deep into the story, but I actually had a life-changing car accident that happened. I was 16 and I was in a head-on collision car accident that ended up with months in the hospital, 13 surgeries. And prior to that accident, I probably would have pursued sports the rest of my life because I was super athletic. I was fastest on the team, played football. I was a quarterback. I ended up playing ice hockey. So I had no intention to get into survey or geospatial. It was not in my path, even though it was in my family. Growing up as a kid, I can't say most people look at traditional survey and go, that's so attractive. I want to stand on the, you know, in the side of the road with a pole and, you know, traditional survey. And, you know, and I guess I'll even say maybe that is part of why it's a known issue that surveying in general, the industry as it is today, more people are retiring than are entering the industry. And
I have an
historic
on that.
Yeah.
No, go right ahead.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, yeah. You know, so that car accident ended my ability to do sports. When I got back to needing to work, my dad was a surveyor. So I'm just in high school still. And I was like, all right, start working on a field crew, doing the typical, chainman work, running a total station. And then I move into the office and I start learning AutoCAD. And, I was like, well, this is a decent job. I didn't go to college. And it was just on the job experience growing. And I was like, I think I'm just going to keep doing this because it was kind of in the family. And during that process of kind of just growing in survey, it was about 13 years ago now, we got introduced to a laser scanner. We were approached and said, hey, we're a scanning company and we sell scanners. Do you know what that is? Are you guys interested in learning more about it? And the business we were working at the time brought them in. They did a demo and I was younger. I was good with technology. And so the owner of the company was like, Matt, why don't you be the guy to look into the laser scanner and, do the demo and trial it. And so I got designated to do the deep diving. And that moment completely changed my career forward. I loved it. I started diving in. It was fun. I was going out and mapping stuff in our city, figuring out how to use the scanner. We started using it in oil and gas projects, and that grew. We grew a department there, started doing scanning in our survey practice, started moving into industries we had not worked in before. And because of the growth and we were doing well with it, we had a large corporate company that kind of picked me to come work with them. And so I did that for a couple years. And what I saw happen was the technology really is what lit my eye and my passion. Before the technology, I was not that excited about land surveying. The technology got me so excited. I turned into the person that was like, instead of just kind of being the typical employee that showed up, worked on the crew or drafted in CAD, I was like on fire. I was like, I wanted to start researching. I'm like getting on forums and I'm talking about the data and I'm figuring out how to use it. And so that passion is really what transformed myself, how I worked, my dedication toward my work. And that grew, got recognized by clients. I kind of moved a couple companies, and I was at a corporate firm when the next level of my passion hit. And I'm like, I want to move faster. I want more flexibility. I want to be able to respond to clients the next day and not wait for like legal teams and just that whole process. And I really had this idea of what happens if I just try it on my own. I was in my 20s. I was like 24, 25, had 2 kids, and I just took the leap. I had no business plan. I had no experience. I didn't take a college class. I had no funding, nothing. I was just like, you know what? I'm going to quit, and I'm going to try to start consulting to people and help them learn about scanners. I'm going to try to help support scanning for them. If they buy a scanner, I'm going to try to help with registration or train them on how to use it. And that was 7 years ago this year. And so really we started as a scanning company, just as a consultant, and we grew, started adding some employees on. We were doing a ton of scanning. During that process, I was also doing a lot of networking. I was going around to conferences. I started using LinkedIn to build relationships with people in our industry. And I was sharing content about how we were using scanners and what industries we were working in and project examples. And so the networking, the new technology, the proactive social media really just continued to organically grow our exposure, grow the interest we were getting, people reaching out, asking about projects. And over the past 7 years, we've grown to be a decent small business. We have around 20 people. We do conventional survey in California. We do land, laser scanning, UAV, some BIM support. And what I also started to realize about 3 years ago, I spent that first 4 years just building services, doing projects, but I realized one of my biggest strengths was building a brand, building a community, communicating with people, my customer service, just interaction with people in the industry. And it took a while to figure out exactly what to do with that. But I was like, I feel like I could do something more than just build me and my company doing the scanning. I started realizing the lack of training, the lack of education, the lack of awareness. When you picked up the phone 10 years ago, nobody was scanning. You had to tell people what a scanner was and how it operated. And I would even say that's true today, that not most people know exactly what that is and how it works and why they want it. So knowing that education and lack of awareness was one of the reasons the industry was still kind of growing slow. 3 years ago, we decided to start a podcast because I had a social media following. I had a lot of relationships, and I was like, well, I've seen podcasting in other industries. It works. You have conversations. People like to listen to them. It's educational. It builds awareness. So we started the podcast in order to have conversations with people in our industry about what kind of company they are, what technologies they're using, how they're using them. And the whole premise, which you guys know, having a podcast, the idea with the podcast was like, well, 10 years ago, in order for me to educate people, what did I do? I found an architect. I called an architect. Maybe I set up a lunch and learn, and I go and educate that architect. That's one company getting educated or one individual getting educated. What happens, podcast, if I record that conversation and build a community of architects? And now I publish that. Well, that one conversation with an architect now educates 500 people without me having to be one-on-one with every single one of them. So podcasting
at least
was
500, right? At least,
you know,
500.
yeah, just as an example of like it multiplies the awareness building or the ability to. The podcast was step one in awareness building, and now we're still working on some of the others, but we decided to build our own conference where not only having digital content, but we bring people together to come do presentations and case studies and panel conversations and bring together the technology vendors. And so we put on our own event where we bring all that together to try to help educate people that are in the industry that want to learn about new technologies. They want to network with people, and also to help people select gear and hear case studies about them and network with vendors. So we've kind of gone from the path the last 7 years really has been started as services. And now the goal for me personally is empowering and educating other people to be able to do the services successfully and know what types of gear to use and how to integrate them in projects. So, that's kind of the short story of the last 12 years, I guess.
No, that's a great story. I'm with you on the survey. Nobody really aims for survey these days, right? Like there's classes that teach it. There are licensing, programs at universities. I think there's, they've got their own roadblocks ahead of them. But I fell into survey accidentally, and it was literally because a surveyor came to me and said, look, the average age of a surveyor is this, the average salary is this. You can make X amount of money, look, they're all going to retire in the next 5 to 10 years. Like the average age right now is 60 years old. And, and all that was true. Nothing was infactual, but what he didn't tell me was that surveyors never retire. They they stay on forever. No, yeah, it was accidental in the survey, but survey got me into construction layout and BIM, and I fell into scanning accidentally. You might know this gentleman, Paul Tice. He was starting a company about the time. He gave me I went to one of his it was like a meetup thing like on meetup.com, and he had like a thing at his office, and I just showed up out of the blue, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is cool. And little did I know that we actually manufactured scanners and all that stuff. But that's that just goes to show the industry adoption was just 10 years ago was just not there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So your current company though, what is that called?
So I still run Nexus 3D Consulting. We still have our services side, but the last 3 years is where I've really started the passion project that is actually becoming my main focus, which is Reality Capture Network. And so the name was started because, we have goals with it to, when you say network, well, is that a network of people? Is it a network like a TV show? It kind of fits all of it. Really the goal around RCN in whole is to build community with professionals around the world that are working with these tools. They want to learn about them. They want to network with other people. They want to find people to collaborate with. And it's all around, even though reality capture, a lot of people initially think that that's really just scanners. Though when we talk about the term reality capture today, we're meaning all technologies that have to do with capturing existing conditions, visualizing it, or creating deliverables from it. Really that whole ecosystem of new technologies and innovation in the built environment.
So
Yes,
drones, scan data,
I feel like if to go back to your previous point with education too, I feel like technology could be the because I mean, in all honesty, dude, I'm sitting over here, I'm listening to your story, and I'm relating to you myself. Like, yeah, I mean, that's why I'm at where I'm at. Like, I found my passion in more of technology. Like, in all reality, I found that I love working with scanners. I love working with scan data, with total stations, layout, construction in general. And I feel like if we can relate the coolness of this technology to a lot of our younger generations, because, surveyors, but also with, our younger generations in construction in general, I feel like there's kind of a lag, I want to say, in the, oh geez.
There's a lag with your internet, Dave.
Yeah, there's a lag with my internet apparently.
Uh-oh.
But I was gonna say that
I heard
there's
it
a lag.
spinning in the background.
Yeah, there's a lag of people essentially coming into our industry, I feel like, with the younger generations, even in construction. I know there is in survey, but even in construction, I feel like just pulling younger people in to construction. I mean,
how
when
do you
first
get
got
younger
in the
people interested? How do you give them a
Yeah,
path? I think the
exactly.
scanning side is obviously more sexier than the construction side. New technology, fun toys, they're really expensive. There's a lot of tech
but you
that
start
goes into
bridging
it.
all of that together with the drones, with the, virtual reality, with building information models and mixed reality, augmented reality. Dude, I think,
Yep.
How often are you, first of all, Matt, how much of that AR, VR are you utilizing?
I would say personally not utilizing a lot of, but is it a focus for us as RCN on the education, on the innovation? Absolutely. Our goal with the RCN side is like, maybe I didn't hands-on, I wasn't the expert in this. RCN is really us building a platform to bring together all the experts, because our goal with it is to be able to say, okay, what is any of the new technology? How is any of it being used? What's the bleeding edge? What's next? What's digital twins? What's Metaverse mean? Where is AR being used on the job site? So my goal is actually finding the people doing that, having the conversations with them, doing webinars with them, bringing them to our conference to present. So all of these things are things that are going to be at our conference in 2 months. We have actual use cases of AR being used in construction to verify locations being built. We have digital twin programs from airports and automotive, and all of these conversations of real big and real world companies saying, here are the technologies we're trialing, here's the use cases, here's the ROIs, here's what's struggling, here's what's working really well. And then it gives feedback to everybody else who maybe isn't doing it yet, or it gives feedback to even the vendors that are there, hearing like, here's a struggle we're having. Now it's really like a big user group, talking about all of it. I think it's a huge
there's
part.
A lot of big there. There's a lot of big names: Navis, ClearEdge 3D, Revitso, Nexus, Preview 3D. I've been watching them on LinkedIn. They're doing vendors, a lot of very cool things.
But also a lot of big companies attending, I'm sure.
Yeah, a lot of our speakers this year, we have a lot of construction presence. We've got, and even some others, so we have ExxonMobil, General Motors, Amazon Web Services, AECom, Gilbane Construction, Turner Construction. It's a big list of people from diverse sectors, even within the built environment. And that's another part about this technology, is that part of what excited me over the years getting into it, just laser scanning even, started pulling me into industries like architecture, construction, forensics, marine, entertainment, movie sets. Like, these technologies have a use case across every industry in the built environment. And so it creates this massive opportunity, like we're talking about with how do we get young people in? Well, these tools are fun, they're attractive, they're visual, they're gamification of built environment jobs. And so they're a huge way to increase the interest of these different roles as more technology gets integrated. Younger generations are coming up with technology in their back pocket. So it's really a natural fit.
Yes, sir.
Every one of these kids has the iPhone, whatever, with the XR.
14, 13,
they know all about LiDAR. From that side, right?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, that's such an interesting point of view. The other side of that, though, is you mentioned, or I guess to reiterate, you mentioned like each of these specific industries using them differently, but inside of each industry, they're even using them differently. Like, we could be talking about verification. You mentioned floor flatness. You mentioned as-built. It could be part of the deliverable to the owner. It could be for assets. It could be anything, which is
so many.
crazy.
Dude, there's so many usage cases. You think about, like what you said, when you put this level of data in this capability in the user's hand, in the regular consumer's hand, There's so many different ways that this can be used. I mean, dude, we were talking like about a year ago about I'm restoring a 69 Mustang, and I wanted to actually be able to and I used Pix 4D for it to actually go through and map it with my phone so I could have a point cloud for it to kind of take measurements for it to look at, because I need a dash and different things like that. And because I thought it was cool. But you know what? I started looking into it, and then I realized as I'm Googling it and YouTube and things like that, I'm realizing that there are car collectors, there are different things, like there are so many people just in the automotive industry that are now starting to use point clouds.
Oh,
and
we're scratching the surface. Yeah.
Oh, dude, exactly. It's so insane.
I had a forensic project where I actually got hired from a collector to scan about 15 classic Mustangs, including one of Shelby's personal cars.
Awesome.
And it was because they were all collector stuff. They got sent to like get things changed out on them, and supposedly parts got swapped. You never know the use case. The use case for accurate documentation and visualization is literally endless. You just, every industry, every company is finding ways to use it. Now, again, that actually creates even more of an issue and more of a need for education, because if you take you take one guy who knows scanning, well, the processes, the workflows, the deliverable creation, those softwares are very different if you're doing oil and gas facility than if you're doing an office building. And so people, some companies, I'd even say that's where one struggle in the industry is that a lot of companies try to go out and tackle everything. And, you learn the hard way of like, oh, they don't want the same deliverable. Oh, that model has to be in that specific software. And so I think, I can't say enough why I just want to hear more conversations and more education around all the tools, the best use cases, the best fits, which tool for which job is something I try to talk a lot about.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, obviously we could get into which scanner for the level of detail, like what is your end goal there. But I wanted to go off of your story there for a minute, man, because I had one. It was really, really cool when I was working in Washington State, and there was a police department there that wanted to utilize a scanner. They'd been looking at scanners for accidents and, scene recreations and things like that. But they wanted to utilize one as also like a crime scene kind of forensics, right? And for this, the first for me, and I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting. Well, when I process the data, and I'm going to give it to them, I'm looking at it, and in this example, they had put a magazine, a 9mm magazine, in right underneath a car, right? Well, the interesting thing about the scanner, they put it right on the ground and they scanned. Well, because of the shadows in the image, in the RGB view of the scan, you can't see it. But if you change it to elevation or you changed it to temperature, instantly, you could see the exact profile, the exact shape and everything of the magazine. So it's kind of curious, when you start thinking about the different use cases, whether it's mining or it's someone, because, a lot of people will say laser scanners, they need light. Well, yeah, they need light, but at the same time, you're having a laser bounce around. And if you don't have light under something, it's still bouncing and it's catching something. If we can utilize that data, it's just interesting to see all the different ways that these can be utilized, even just in the case of, whether you're colorizing it off of an image or you're looking at, the raw data of the scanner, of the actual colorization of the lasers of where they're hitting.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can scan in pitch black or in a room with the light off. The laser is what's measuring. So your point cloud is still going to be accurate, but your images or your colorization would not be there, So, there's all those factors, and people ask all those questions. They're like, can you scan in the dark? Can you see what's in the walls? You're like, no, it is line of sight only. It's not X-ray. It doesn't go through stuff. It's all whatever the scanner can see is what it can measure.
Yes, sir. Now, again, this is kind of passion here, but I love construction technology. And when I was in Afghanistan, I did a lot of my stuff in the Army. I did a few years there, and we had these pieces of equipment called a GPR, right? And essentially, we would route clearance and send this ground penetrating radar into the ground to look for bombs. Well, now they're using it to look at, just kind of as you're saying there, as kind of like an X-ray, a wall penetrating radar to see what is behind there, what's in a slab, where the PT cables are. It's very cool to see how the different, like the technology, how it can be used in so many different ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
But man, on that note, I was going to say, can we get a shout out? What are the dates for your conference?
Yeah, our conference is October 17th through 19th. So it is a full 3-day event. Most people are flying in the night before. We do like a networking happy hour on the 16th, but it is 3 days full of case studies and presentations. We also, because we really started from the podcast side, I love conversations. So we do multiple panels every day where there's 8 people on each panel, and we sit and have conversations around different topics like survey and reality capture and the survey industry. We have women in AEC and technology talking about the women aspect in construction and the diversity piece and the, encouraging more women and them sharing their career. We have talking specifically about digital twin and metaverse. What is a digital twin? What industries are adopting this process? And what does the metaverse mean to the built environment? And, so we have a lot of fun in conversation and relationship building. And I know I told you guys earlier, but we also try to put a big focus to networking, because we find that as much as we like the case studies and we like the vendors and we learn about the technology, the additional time that we try to create to actually network and build relationships with people is where we see the most value. We want people to come to the event, and when they go home, they have several new people that they know who to contact because they were looking into a scanner, or because they wanted to learn about AR, glasses for construction, or they were looking for someone to educate them about drones. We want them to leave having a contact in any of those technologies so they can actually make progress within innovation in their own company or within their industry. So really, that's the big goal for us.
Yes, sir.
That seems like a win-win for not only the attendees, being able to get a good access point for the information and developing those relationships, but makes it worthwhile for vendors. I've been through many conferences as both a vendor and an attendee. I can almost tell you almost always the vendor side is like, I wish we had more interaction with the people. Like, if you're changing the game here, we're talking about the way that historically existing user groups, or not user groups, but conferences have been run, is there's always a breakout session, and how do you force people in there? And they try to do this stupid bingo thing where you go sign by each booth and you get a little bingo card or whatever. It just seems like a very forced interaction. It also seems like the people that are there, are usually are already customers of yours. They're people that you would have interacted with outside of the conference. Now, by opening up for hours on end and actually making it less of a exhibit boothy type space where it's a forced interaction, you're probably more likely to get authentic communication interactions. With authentic is what we're all about, right? We talk about podcasting and developing communities and stuff. We could put all the content out there all we want. Sorry, I'm slurring. I got 3 beers in. All the content out there that we want. But at the end of the day, if you're not authentic about the way that about yourself, about the way you're presenting your company, the services you do, nobody wants to listen to you. And I think it forces people to be authentic, and that's a good interaction.
Yeah, no, absolutely. In fact, I definitely am not one to point out individuals or companies specifically, but I'll say, you notice a huge difference when you see a manufacturer put on their own event, or a manufacturer host a podcast, or, versus somebody who's doing it, or a group of people or some guys and having a brew, having an honest, authentic conversation, you see a big difference in the authenticity and the goal and the why and the how they're doing it, when it's like, what is your true goal? And then who's doing it and how are you approaching it? Because the last thing people want is just another sales metric, right? Like, I don't want to go listen to a podcast if the podcast is always only focused on like, our product does this and, come on and talk to us about it, or, you that authentic piece and the actually wanting people to have these conversations, and even knowing when you aren't maybe the right fit, whether it's a service, whether it's a technology, whether it's a vendor. Honesty and authenticity will lead to better customers, better purchases, because it's a real one. It's a true one because of the relationship or because it's a good fit. They're going to be happier. They're going to use it well. The projects will go well and they'll buy more, instead of they got sold something that wasn't a good fit. It didn't work. It's sitting on a shelf. They're angry. They give bad rep, and they don't suggest anyone ever buys it again.
Well, we all hate salespeople. I hate salespeople. Salespeople call me and I'm like, dude, I ain't got time for you. So I mean, we just hate salespeople. It's a natural human inclination to not want to be sold to. We want to discover something for ourselves. We want to learn. We want to, and then, find it for ourselves. Like, there's that old reverse psychology sort of stuff that you can talk about, where, for instance, if I were to just throw a bunch of stuff at you and I knew it's what you needed, you would not have a great reaction to it. Now, if I somehow found a way, or you in general found a way to come to that material yourself, read it, you'd be like, oh my God, this is exactly what I needed. And it'd be a different, exactly, right? We all hate sales.
So,
it's like the old school saying, you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day, you teach a man to fish, you feed him for life. Right?
Yep.
If you can teach for skill, like
so
sure.
I believe that conversation right there is something that most companies don't do well with. Most companies don't see or understand yet the value of educating and honest educating and openness being the sales process. Like, don't only rely on hardcore, like, knock on the door, convince them to buy your product. If you educate people on it, they will want it if they see why. If it's a good product and they get the proper education material out of it, the case studies, the examples, that is one of the best sales processes.
There was a company in the BIM space. I'm blanking on the name at the moment, but they had this. I was just a third party in the interaction. I had nothing to do with them, nothing affiliated. I wasn't going to be the user. Just a client of mine was involved. Their whole process was like, look, I'm going to be honest with you. You might not be a good fit for us. How about we take 15 minutes? We'll have a future conversation about it. And I'll be more, my client had sought them out, and they, even in the initial rebuttal reaction, like the initial reaction, they threw out a rebuttal saying, I don't know if you're going to be a good fit for us. Let's have that 15-minute conversation. That's fine. I'll tell you what we can do, but I'll be open and honest. And then you can decide for yourself if it's worth pursuing demos and stuff. Like, made it so valuable. Like 15 minutes, we can all give up 15 minutes, hopefully. And it made it, ultimately the client ended up not being a good fit for them, but they were honest throughout the whole thing. And that relationship right there, like, I still think about it. I think I'm connected with the guy on LinkedIn that had this conversation, even though he's not with the company anymore. But that right there, like, just like blew my mind. It's like, wow, that you're not trying to sell to them. You're actually trying to turn away a customer.
Wow.
And be honest with them.
Yeah. And, and that's one of the reasons I think, right, no matter what industry, the salesperson kind of has this bad rep, because what is historically, what do people talk about salesmen? The car salesman, that, you walk up, you're going to get convinced, you're going to get convinced no matter what. They're going to try to haggle you. They want you to leave. They don't want you to walk off that lot without committing to the car. They're going to give a discount. They're going to include something. And people don't want that. People, like you said, they want to know the information. They want to help, you give honest advice of like, here's why I think it's a good idea. Here's things to consider. Here's why it might not be a good idea. It's just way better for everybody. And you're going to get more interest from people to interact with you as a salesperson if you're not overbearingly salesy.
Well, I think there's
100%.
a reason why sales. Sorry.
Provide value. No, you're all good, dude. If you can provide value, if you can, well, of course, first, if you can establish a good relationship, and if you can provide value, if you can actually help the client do something, then no, I'm not. I'm all about a salesperson, because if you know what you're talking about, and you can help me understand what I'm investing and why I'm investing in it and why it may help me do what I do, then 100%, like, I'm all for it. However, if you're just trying to, you walk out and you're just trying to sell me this,
how do you differentiate that, David? How do you differentiate between a sales guy? Like, I think for me, like, you almost got to look at their LinkedIn profile or something, and maybe look at the time in the job, because there's a thing about salespeople. We all know it's like they're there one day, they're not there the next. How many different sales reps have you interacted with for the same product? If they're not the manufacturer of that product, they're just a reseller. More often than not, that person has been replaced 5 or 6 times. And I'm not throwing anybody on the bus. I'm not saying any names, but I call somebody. I'm like, oh, who do you work with? Oh, I work with so and so. Well, when's the last time you chatted with them from that company? Oh, I don't know even who my rep is anymore. Well, the reason why is because sales reps in general, they just move on. They want the next biggest paycheck. They get a guarantee for a year. I'm spilling some beans here, but they get a guarantee for a year, 3 months, 6 months, whatever it is. They hit their quotas or they don't, and then they're on to the next job that's paying them X amount more. And they don't really develop relationships. Finding somebody that's been in that industry for 5 years plus is huge. And this just goes to any industry outside of AEC, anything. Anybody that's willing to stay in the industry for more than 5 years, I think is probably got your best interest at heart, or they're doing something right at least.
Yeah, I'd say another thing that I think I see a lot of people miss on, when it comes to sales, when it comes to outreach, when it comes to connecting with someone and sending them a message, we all get these LinkedIn messages that are so templated, that are not personal. They obviously didn't even look at what you do for work. It's like, look, if you actually want to increase your conversion of people responding to you and maybe even following up and setting up a call, as the person doing the outreach, be actually interested in who they are and what they do, and take 10 minutes to look up their company, look up at some of their recent posts, see what type of things they're doing, and don't just send a copy template that, even you missed the wrong, you put the last name that you sent, you get one that's like, they send it to me and it says, hey, John. And I respond, I'm like, well, I'm not John, but thanks for reaching out. If you actually put that little bit of personal touch in there of learning who they are, what they do, what their company does, look at some of their last couple posts, and actually just create a first warm introduction of, hey, I saw you're working on this type of project, and I see that I saw a picture of you guys using a scanner. I'd love to connect sometime if you'd be interested, and just learn about, what you guys are doing in the industry. We work in a similar field. That is going to get 10 times the response, 20, 100 times the response than anyone sending a message that says, hey, I'm blah, 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 and I sell, scanners, and I'd love for you to take a look at this. Everyone deletes that instantly.
So I fell victim to this. I'm guilty of this, and I'll be honest. Everyone is. I'll be forthcoming about it. I didn't even copy and paste. I trialed a plugin that is now banned by LinkedIn that sent automated messages. And I've got a LinkedIn premium account, so they probably didn't care. But it's an automated message. Hey, I'm so and so. Blah blah blah. Love to connect. We got mutual connections. Whatever it said, I don't know. There were template messages. I think I did it for like the 3-month trial. Didn't renew it after that. I don't think I had any connections or reactions from it. It was a very meaningless, way to connect with people. I had moved from Oregon to the I don't know what they call this area Appalachia, It's not quite the Midwest, but it's not the East Coast. And in connecting with people like that, this is the tool I use. This is a real story, guys. And then somebody reached out to me and said, "Is this a real message?" And I'm like, and it notifies me when they respond. I'm like, "Yes, it is." And like, this seems very, they were very honest about it. And I was like, you know what? I told them exactly what I'm telling you now. I tried something, and I'm not going to try it anymore. I was done. I let it go. I let it lapse, and I think that right there just shows you like authentic communication.
Yep.
Is the only way to go. We can't just berate people with content, because this is why algorithms exist, is to feed them content that they think is beneficial to them, because the people that are reaching out them the sheer content might not be sharing them content that are even worthwhile, or the vice versa, that content's paid and they want to promote specific content to them that is paying them for the advertising marketing.
Yeah.
Either way, poor interactions.
So in general, my overall thought about all of that, it goes back to authentic relationships. It goes back to building trust with people. If you mass message, again, most of us have done this. We've tried it. We've learned the hard way. Anything I'm saying, it's because I've done it or I've learned it, and I've, the last 15 years. Back when I needed to outreach to people, I used to copy and paste and send messages. But again, over the years, I've just learned that quantity is not better than the quality, because if you go deeper with someone in your personal, they're likely to respond. If you have a templated sales message and you send it to 100 people, you might not get a response, because people can tell at this point, like everyone's doing that. If you show genuine interest and you build relationships, then the lower amount of people with better quality contact, you're actually going to get a better response and authentic relationship building, get on that first call, have a conversation, be able to ask them questions. And I'll even say, this goes back to why I'm so excited about our own conference, because all of that translates to our event. The way that we're building a community is not, look, we just want to invite anybody who will buy a ticket. We want people who are interested in these technologies. So everybody coming to our event is coming because they're related to these technologies. And even in the conference itself, does it have 10,000 people like some of the other events I go to? No. But I come back with more quality relationships, because when I go to a sea of 10,000 people, they're from all kinds of industries. They don't do what I do. They don't need me. They work in manufacturing. They work in some other industry. It's hard to find who to connect with. So we're finding in everything we do that the number of people we reach or interact with or that come to our event is not what matters. It really does matter. What is the core focus? Who are the people? Are you creating opportunities to connect on a deeper relationship instead of that blast email approach? Do we get one-on-one time to actually learn about them, build the relationship, and dig deep? I think that just goes for any interactions, whether it's LinkedIn messages, sales, in-person events. That communication piece, trust building, and deeper relationship with people is huge.
Yeah, it's very grassroots, and it's probably the only way really to move forward with this sort of stuff. This brings me to another topic. You mentioned being authentic, and it's hard to be authentic when you're artificial intelligence. I use AI quite a bit, whether it's Bard, ChatGPT, Opus, another platform, whatever. We're always using AI in some fashion to try and make things more efficient. What is your thoughts on AI and best use cases? Because it's obviously not human interaction for like a sales thing.
Yeah. My first response on AI, the first thing I want to say is like, I love all technology. And I think that we should be interested in all technology, because it's going to happen, right? Scanners are getting created. Don't be a surveyor who says, no scanners, you're taking away my jobs. AI is being created and it's coming out. I'm never going to be the one to say, oh, I hate that because now writers can't write. No, it's like, look, let's thoroughly think about this. Yeah. Let's evaluate, what should we use this for? What is it good to use for? Where is it not going to be good? So first of all, I love ChatGPT. I do use it. I like to use it more as a idea generator. I heard somebody say AI is automatic ideas. So it's not artificial intelligence, it's automatic ideas. I use it to get prompts. I use it for ideas. It has a very valuable use case because the time it takes for you personally to stop right now and say, hey, Joseph, David, what are the 20 best uses of virtual reality that are being adopted today? Well, shoot. Yeah, how long is it going to take for you to sit there and think of that? There's an hour of my day. You know, and how many of them do you even know exist yet? And how many of them have you ever seen? And how many of the, yet the power of AI actually being trained on all these language models and having information, it's better to ask ChatGPT that question than it is to Google it, because Google is only going to provide you links to maybe articles that have similar wording that may be old, maybe inaccurate, maybe who knows what. Maybe Google pushes you to something else. Yeah. ChatGPT takes all the information and actually formulates a response to you. So I love it for that use case of like, you have an idea, you have a question, you need to like tweak, for marketing reasons, we'll say, you want to tweak the title of this podcast episode, right? You say, hey, we'll use it for this. Yeah. Give me 10 examples of give me 10 titles for this podcast episode that talked about laser scanners, construction technology, entrepreneurship, whatever. And now you use that and you see the 10 examples it gives, and you may not take it exactly as it is, right? But it's ideas. It gives you a starting point. So I don't think that it's going to last long for companies to use it as the resource to like, hey, it is going to write all of our blogs and it's going to replace our content writers and our copywriters. And I know people are trying that and they want to because it's free, right? There is value in the human mind, in ideas, utilizing it as a tool, but not replacing them fully.
Exactly, dude. It goes to authenticity, right? People know. I mean, you can kind of see what's been generated by ChatGPT and what's actually wrote by someone. It goes back to that. I really feel like if that and their developing tools section.
You can tell a comedian's joke versus an AI joke, or an artist's song versus an AI song. You can tell the difference. They're close. They might be good, but they're not quite there. And there's something about it. I would still go pay to see a concert from, somebody. I'm not going to name any names because we get backlash for being secret Swiftie or whatever. I don't know. As far, or AI. Like, I don't really care about what songs AI is created. If it plays on the radio, it plays on the radio. Otherwise, I'm not really interested. But where I see it being beneficial, especially on the marketing side, is like you've got a marketing department of X amount with limited knowledge on these things that you guys do. Yeah. How do you educate the marketing department and do this? How are they going to write a title for laser scan conversion for an as-built project to create an existing model for a large manufacturing space or something? Like, how do they create that title? Like, they don't know that. They don't know what the product is or what it does. So they're going to lean on AI to do that sort of stuff. The other side of that, though, is being, again, ChatGPT, like, it integrates with so much. Like, there's so much things that you can automate, and you can kind of figure out how to get to the next level. Dave and I are baking out some ChatGPT automation right now. It's like a way to code and program. Like, I'll ask ChatGPT how to write the code for the thing to implement it. And it's not perfect, but it gives me a general idea.
Starting point. It's a head start. It's progress.
It saved me 3 hours of YouTube videos to figure this out. And the other part of that is for the ChatGPT to tell me, all about why I want to create it. Like, I can ask it, hey, if I were to do this, how many people do you think would like it? It's intelligent enough to like give you a real understanding. It's hit or miss, but it's all right. I used it today for the most mundane reason ever created. I asked it because I spent 5 minutes wasting my day going through Google searches, and I'm like, why am I doing this? To your point earlier about clicking links and hoping that you get information, I wanted to know, and it was just a stupid point I was trying to make to somebody. I wanted to know the list of the top 20 states by width, east to west, and nowhere on Google would it tell me that list. I asked the ChatGPT, and I got it in seconds.
Yeah, and it's crazy. It doesn't have to be an article that already exists somewhere from a study somebody did. It will take the information and go, I have the language, I have the knowledge of all the width, of all the size, of all the population, of whatever it is you ask it, and it will formulate that and do it for you. I like to use the example of recipes, right? You can, instead of Googling, okay, I'm looking for I'm not gluten-free, but I'm looking for a gluten-free recipe that makes macaroni and cheese that includes bacon but doesn't have pepper, whatever freaking details you want in there. It's not going to look for a recipe that has those. It will build you the recipe based on what you're asking for. And then you scale it and say, okay, duplicate make it serve 20 people, and it's going to tell you the ingredient list to shop for.
I legit use ChatGPT for meal planning for 2 weeks for my family of 7. I was like, let's see how it does. Let's test it out. And it gave me a meal plan, like everything. And then I asked it, like, okay, well, that meal plan looks great. Give me a grocery list for this. And it actually walks through. It gives you like each individual item. It's awesome.
I am underusing ChatGPT. So I'm going carnivore right now, and shopping is insanely hard finding meals. Oh, no, more keto than carnivore. And I never thought about ChatGPT.
Yeah. Yep. Or even the other way around of like, you could say, here are the ingredients I have, and it'll design a meal out of what you got left.
Exactly.
Oh,
yes,
that's
it will.
beautiful, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
he said recipes, Dave. What does that make you think of?
I thought Workato too, but in all honesty, I've been using it for my recipes in Workato. I'll ask it questions. I mean, Joe and I have been working on some integrations in the background. We thought it'd be fun to write this integration to Slack and ChatGPT, but also like a common data environment like the Construction Cloud and Build. And so we started messing with it and have it analyzing data and stuff like that. It's been quite interesting. We've been thinking a lot about recipes and how to integrate. And it's funny. You'll ask it like, hey, how do I integrate ChatGPT with a Slack workbot? And he'll straight tell you kind of how like the steps that it expects to get it.
Yeah. I believe in just the next few years, ChatGPT or custom trained models like that will be the support system for every website, for every company.
I don't know if that's a good thing though.
If you can filter
go ahead, Matt.
Database, if you can filter it and let it go to that company's database, but not let that company's database go to the entire, let's say, ChatGPT analysis database. I mean, you're not opening it to the public.
No.
If you just have it analyzed, like your
I'm going to
SQL
use an example here. I'm going to use an example. Take it with what you want. IBM Watson was like one of the first quote unquote AIs out there. It wasn't really about AIs. It was a mechanism for predictive analytics. They called it an AI. I don't know if it really truly was. That said, I know a lot of companies, and I hate to name names, so I'm not going to, that use it for their support mechanism, and it is still used today and is probably one of the most hated support mechanisms that has ever existed. I don't know. Like, I think it's getting better. Like, that's the thing about technology. It's only going to get better. Scanners sucked 20 years ago. Technology's changed quite a bit. They're not a, 50-pound
Dude, in all honesty,
scanner. It's
with
5 pounds.
With doing tech support for, let's say, Revit or AutoCAD or most of your design products out there, it's funny, but you can actually go to ChatGPT and say, I'm having this issue with Revit. What steps should I look to troubleshoot it? And it searches through all the forums, everything like that, and it actually gives you like a few steps to actually follow. So in all honesty,
not searching through anything. So it is consumed the internet up until 2021.
Oh,
It
that's
knows
true.
all of this information. It was programmed with this information. It doesn't have to search anything. It knows it.
And they'll keep improving. They'll increase the language models. They'll expand it. It can be current. But
them to expand the token amount. That's what I'm happy for.
the
Well, that's what you
reason
need for ChatGPT. Yeah.
the reason I think that, and again, maybe it's not every single business type, but I think the majority, a freaking headache I had to go through 2 weeks ago. I bought an HP printer. And I don't say anything bad. I'm not saying, well, I said the brand already. It's too bad. Sorry, guys, you did terrible. I bought a printer, bought it through Amazon. Amazon gave me the option of like, look, you can send it back or work with the support and they'll just walk you through the troubleshooting and, they'll send you a new one if there's a problem. It took me 4 hours on the phone with the support person because I was like, actually, no, sorry. It wasn't a phone call. It was a live chat on the website with the support. And they're like, okay, we're going to have to ask you these questions. We need you to go through and trial this setting. We need to do this. And then after like 40 minutes of going back and forth and waiting and they're looking stuff up, I get this little notification. This user has disconnected. And then a brand new support user logs in and says, hi, sorry for your waiting, blah, blah, blah. And they start over. They're like, we're going to have to ask you the basic questions. And I literally was like, can you not see the chat history? Like, we've already gone through all these steps. I've already troubleshooted everything. This is not working. I just want a replacement. It was 4 hours of that. I look at the idea of, okay, what if the user was not an individual that they're having to pay, that's just reading something, going through these steps, getting it wrong. It's frustrating me. What if it's a ChatGPT type scenario that already knows the in and out of their product, and it is going to just ask the questions and say, here's the steps we need. Give me this response. And I say, okay, I tried that. This is the answer. And it says, okay, here's the next thing to trial. And it's no human interaction. We're not delayed on them. It's not a user from their side. And it's instant access to get through those steps and come to an outcome. You lose the personal piece. You lose them having to train it. I think for things like that.
Saves them from hard, staffing issues and turnover and them.
And it saves me.
Those people don't stick around, right? Those people are, I as somebody who's been on the telecommunication side of this sort of scenario, you are very short-lived. You do not want to keep doing that job forever. Yeah. It's not a worthy career.
So in the future, I think
not a worthy
AI
career is not accurate, but
yeah. But in the future, I think AI replaces 80% of support people.
I can see that. But I can also sense my frustration of like, I already know the answer to that. Maybe it's just better AI models is probably where we're getting to. Is like, because I've already tried this. Don't tell me to restart or plug it in or whatever. Like, get past that shit. Like, let's get to the next part. That's
where I think
laser scanning.
Well, I'll circle back to there, but that's why I also think that the latest AI modules and where it's at currently, I think it's getting to the part. Look, if it's smart enough, I can say this is the recipe I want, and it builds it for you. I think it'll get to the point it's smart enough that, when you use it in a support system, it's not going to be like a dumb system that's like, no, you have to do this step. No, you have to do this step. You can just describe and say, here's what I've tried. Here's where I'm at. Here's the issue. And it's going to be able to intelligently take that and answer it. So I think we're at a good point, there. When I look at now, I believe that will also directly integrate into software in our industry. I believe that we will be able to, in the future, integrate that type of knowledge and technology to, have a AI system learn data and learn within a platform. What do I want to be able to do? I want to be able to go into a software with my point cloud and ask my software a question and have it be able to identify something for me. Hey,
how many pipes?
Clear edge. Hey, rhythm. Here, clear it. Whatever. How many feet of pipe are in this? Or where is the high spot on my concrete floor and where is my low spot? Not me take the time to go walk through all these steps and try to click these buttons and just at some point, I think the two of those are going to start mixing, where you're able to ask the software to do the thing, and it's not just the click of a button that does an algorithm. It will be able to intelligently take, what are you asking, what data do I have, and what can I actually do to give you a report or an answer. And that's just one basic example, but you think about that across different data sets, across different organizations, taking BIM models and digital twins and
whatever it is. Yeah, dude, what zone is this room in? What HVAC system pumps heat to this room? Anything like that, being able to just get and find out.
And then next level questions of like, okay, if that's the current system I have, could my building structure support a larger system? What would I have to do to expand the building on the left? Yeah.
And the current system, handle it, or do I have to expand it? How would I best expand that with a budget of, this amount? That stuff, that kind of stuff. And it starts actually.
You're crossing over to engineering there, man. That's scary.
Well, and that's where I do believe there's going to be, just like any technology, there's going to be things to be careful about, just like there is scanners right now. People are taking scanners, scanning the wrong way, getting bad data, screwing up projects. Literally, that is happening. That will happen with AI. There has to be careful processes of like, how are we using it? Do we know the workflows for sure? What are we asking? What are we relying it on? How are we QCing that data? How are we QCing the response? But in order for that to be possible in the future, to be able to ask a software and get decent responses, it's going to require that today we start ironing out our processes, our data, our models, the information in the models, and getting to that future vision of what? Digital twins of buildings, of facility, that an enterprise would have these models and the information prepared to even be able to do stuff like that. So there's a lot of points in between there, but I do think we will get to the point over the next several years that things like that are implemented and possible.
So he said digital twin, everybody take a drink. It's a drink word on the show.
Cheers.
Cheers. Yeah, so digital twin is one of those words that for me, like I understand its meaning, I understand its value, but it's so often misused, like bridging the gap or whatever, right? Like it's so often misused without being clearly defined that it's just become a buzzword almost. Like, oh, we need a digital twin. And I have a friend, a client who's doing an airport job. And they're like, we need a digital twin. And I'm like, oh, well, what does that mean? Well, I don't know. But you need a digital twin? Like, what does this mean? Like, what is defined to make this a digital twin? And anyways, man, sorry to go on a tangent there. The issue with the AI piece is we will make assumptions today, biases today, and not really understand the potential. Like, we don't even have quantum computing tied into this yet. When this is all done, AI, I won't say it'll be sentient. I never know if it'll get there. Everybody says it is there, it will be there, but at its very core, it's going to be as useful as Google, if not more so. In our everyday life, we'll use it in a different capacity, 100%. But it's just going to be one of those things that we just go to. It's going to be the new tool that aids us in our everyday life.
Think about it. Let's think about it from, you and I, we talk a lot about construction, right? And let's think about it, a typical project manager or superintendent. And if they let's say they wake up in the morning, they get ready and then they go to their site and they're curious about what everything's going on, what's going on for the day, what tasks do they have, what current RFIs do they have open. Typically, they've got to go to some kind of database to start looking that up, to start connecting the dots, looking at the references, and that's if it's in one environment. It might be in multiple environments. Imagine being able to just query all of those environments at one time with a simple question like, man, what's my day look like today? Or, how many open issues? What are my tasks for today? What are my scheduled phases? What's going on my site today? And it can give you an answer. Like, it just updates you and lets you know. I mean,
we're going Iron Man here. You're just gonna walk in and say, hey, ChatGPT, Siri, Google, what? And you just start asking questions, and you're gonna get answers. You're gonna get feedback. I think things will start going that way. I believe AI is going to have just as much of an impact in personal life as it is in the potential of these business integrations. Think about everything that we do in life. Like, what happens if you want to plan a vacation right now? Well, it'd be a whole lot easier to say, hey, ChatGPT, here's the time frame I'm thinking of going to this place, and I'd like you to help me find the cheapest flight tickets, in the next 30 days, and help me, come up with what my budget would need to be if I want to go do these things. Like, in anything that you do, the additional help that it will provide as it becomes better, as it becomes more trained, more knowledgeable, and when it becomes live integrated into things like that. I heard the example of like travel agency, right? There used to be people who got paid to book your travel. Well, websites and the integration of being able to do your own through Expedia and whatever else, you just book your own travel now. This is going to be the next iteration of that, of like, well, now you don't even have to go to Expedia and book that. You just tell it the parameters, and it's going to go find all the best stuff for you. It's going to sort through it. It's going to give you the response. You can change your request and say, I'd like to fly out earlier. Can you find the next best flight? Without all the actual work of doing it.
Yeah, I actually know somebody who's in the travel agency business, and that use case never popped in my mind, but that is amazing. And would save us, 1,000 emails and phone calls, and makes it so much better. And do we know if we're getting the best price and all that sort of stuff? This is great. I like that. My mind never went there. But at the other side of that, though, or not, I keep saying on the other side of that. That's not what I mean. But on the same token here, the best way to get a business to adopt technology is to get the consumers to adopt technology. And I say consumers being everyday people. So that we have business applications, we have consumer applications, the everyday people to adopt technology in their everyday life, because they're going to bring that to the business world. So if you want to implement LiDAR, put iPhones in the hands of everybody, and there you go, bam, right? If you want to adopt AI in a business outcome, a business scenario, you give it to every consumer. And that's because when I go to work, the first thing I do is like, I use Google in my everyday life. Why can't I use Google at work? Well, you can. It makes it easier. It makes your life a lot better if you know how to ask it the right questions and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. On top of trialing or getting in the hands of consumers, I'll say this until I have no more breaths left to say it, that education, people are afraid of AI. People are afraid of technology. People are hesitant to change. People don't want to innovate. People want to do what they're comfortable with. If we can create processes where we trial things, we create cultures in our companies that people are willing to come in and share new ideas, and the culture allows that and encourages it. And we create a process to create pilot programs of, hey, you came in and have this idea to bring AI and integrate it into our travel booking process. Like, if you have a way, or you found a system, or you bring it in and let's have a meeting. Let's actually talk about this, not shut you down and say, we're not interested in AI. It's a waste of our time. Create this process of innovation that allows people to come in and share, trial things, find out if it's a fit, and then create educational content around that. Do a webinar that explains how you did it and why it saved you time. And now all the other people in your company that were hesitant or thought, were afraid, got to watch. Here's what we tried. Here's what we went through. Here's the result. And if you're interested in trying it, you explain that out. And so I think that education piece can help overcome a lot of the adoption hesitation for really all of these technologies.
Yeah, we have a motto in construction. It is, but that's the way I've always done it.
Yeah.
So getting over that, in which we are definitely getting over that. We're starting to see who's rising to the top. At the end of the day, though, we have to take a step back and realize that the way that we've always built buildings, or the way that we've built buildings, still requires people to actually build buildings. AI
Absolutely.
is never going to replace that. But we have to take a different mindset when it comes to adopting technology. Yes, is there going to be some overhead? Potentially. Is there going to be some training that goes into? Yes, of course there is. But unless our employees and ourselves are interested in investing in education, we're never going to get to that next level. We might as well become dinosaurs.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Companies today have to be willing to create a process to invest in themselves and create a process to try new things, to invest in technology, to invest in innovation if they want to see improvement and change over time. And, we look at different industries and different business examples over the past where it's like a company failed to do that fast enough and they went out of business. And so when I hear companies say like, look, this is how we've always done it. Well, at some point, if the rest of the industry is moving that way and people are adopting it, your business will become non-existent. Like if you're I'll use my own industry as a survey company. If you're a survey in the survey industry and you have a survey business and you today are saying, look, I'm a traditional survey company. We're not getting into this fancy scanner thing and drones and like, we're going to just do it the way we've always done it. You might be able to do that for a while, and or you might be able to do it on a really small scale. You have some really good clients and you're small. You're not going to grow. You're not going to become an industry leader. You're not going to be recognized for being innovative and having good deliverables. And you just can't do it if a majority of the rest of the survey industry is realizing, okay, yes, my drone will help me map faster, and that takes away a little bit of work for my field crew, but it lets me do more work and it lets me provide a deliverable that is more innovative than I used to do. I can do it cheaper. So now my client can do 10 times the amount of their projects because they have more budget to use. So any business that's in the building industry that is hesitant and will not create a process to innovate and be willing to look at technologies, over time, you become less interesting.
Yep.
Yeah. So
you got to be willing to grow, or you become stagnant. And I, in this industry, especially with the technology evolving, even we're having this conversation about ChatGPT and we're geeking out about it. In another year, in 2 years, in 3 years, who knows exactly what it'll be capable of.
Yeah.
In all honesty,
when have you ever known a 4-year-old to accomplish anything? Give it to ChatGPT 35, man. It's gonna be awesome.
Yeah. If you think about it, dude, I never thought that I'd be able to view a Revit model or like a point cloud or thing on my cell phone. And nowadays it's like, oh yeah, we got stuff that'll do that. It's just the way that technology evolves in this industry. I feel like you have to be willing to adapt. You have to be willing to grow. Yes, I understand the technology laggards. I understand why. I understand some of the reasoning. The cloud is scary.
No, there's no reason, man. Come on now. I have I have a lot of friends.
That's a scary thing.
I have a lot of friends in survey, man, and they're still running 30-year-old transits and whatnot. I'm like, why don't you get a total robotics station? You want a one-man gun, right? And they're like, well, this just works for me. And I was like, you have to hire somebody else to go out there and hack with the machete and capture your shots while you're physically, rotating that and locking onto their, like, this is the dumbest thing ever. It's like, you know what? I know they have cell phones, but I'm going to walk 6 miles to that payphone down the road. And it's like, what's the point of that?
Yeah.
Surveyors are a bad example.
It is. And it is. And, it's what I'm close to. So I use it a lot. And I also try to do the opposite response too and say, look, we're not saying you have to always buy the latest and own all of it. But at some point, when it's been proven, when the majority of the industry is moving that way, that's when you should be afraid of not innovating and not getting on board, because again, you will become not interesting. You'll be too expensive. You'll be too slow. You have to, at a minimum, keep up with the normal industry trends. And if you want to be exceptional and seen as innovative and have something that majority don't, then you need to create a process to be on the leading edge of really trialing new things and adopting and building a team. You can be on that end, but at a minimum, try to like keep up with industry standard and be willing to still change, a little bit.
Yeah, the industry standard, that's a good point. Like, I don't have to adopt the newest iPhone, but being on a smartphone in general is probably pretty good for me.
Yeah. I mean, and any technology we look at, like, you use total stations as an example. Look, majority of companies have robotics. They're going to be similar speeds. They're going to be similar cost. If you're using something way older, way slower, you're going to bid a job for 3 days that's going to take them 1. You're going to start losing work. You're not going to be able to keep up. So you have to keep up with what at least is typical in the industry, which requires some level of innovation. But if you're also struggling to grow, you want to grow a business, or you're having a struggle in competition, then you want to think even outside the box and try to be a little bit ahead and be interested in these new technologies and something that you could do that's a little different, that might make your client a little bit happier or a little more impressed. Those things happen.
How can you win more jobs, right? That's what it boils down to.
Exactly.
How can you win more jobs and provide the same, if not better, quality product you're currently doing now? I did a 300-acre site. Took me months to do. I wasn't out there every day, but for Topo, I could have flown that thing in like 2 days. 2 days of flying, minimum, less than a week of flying, would have had everything done. Everything.
Yep.
But
and some companies and some people, they don't. Again, this goes back to education. They don't know enough about the technologies to know that that's what it would be. They don't have enough knowledge about the technologies to know that that would be cheaper. I'll use architects as the same example. Even though scanning has been around long enough and there's so many devices, you can do it fast, you can do it, it's not that expensive. There are still architects that are going out by hand with tape measures, drafting up walls and creating floor plans by hand, and they're out there for 5 days, and they take 3 people, and they still miss things, and they have to go back. And so and why are they not scanning? Because they don't know enough about it. Nobody's told them.
Why are they not buying a total station? Like, we run into guys all the time that don't even, it takes them 2 days to lay out 100 points. It's like, I could lay out 400 points in a day with a total robotic station, and yet you're pulling tape with 3 guys and you're not able to do it with inside of a week. This doesn't make sense. A scan we would get this in minutes. Sorry, go ahead, man.
Yeah,
Yes.
no, it's just that. It's that, there are lots of people across all industries still doing things that are actually a more difficult way. They're a more expensive way. There's actually really no benefit to doing that way. Yet they don't have enough education to understand that they have the fear that the new technology is going to be just way more expensive, way too difficult. And you're like, look, there's ways to get it done that's not going to cost you more. You can either buy a scanner yourself and do it. You can rent a scanner. You can hire a service provider to come out and do it in a day and just charge you a fee. Either way, it costs less and you get it done faster. All of the benefits from the new technology replace all of the bad things about doing it the old way. You don't miss measurements. You didn't do it by hand. It's more accurate. It's faster. It comes into your 3D program instead of having, sketches. You got to go draw, so it,
well, you
it
didn't
comes
have to
down
fly
to they don't
somebody
understand it.
You didn't have to fly somebody across the country because you missed a measurement to go back and get a job that you admit. Like, a scan gives you everything. I'm with you, man. I think I'm excited to see what the next iteration of scanning is, as we're talking about with AI and technology advancing. Big proponent of Clear Edge, obviously, seeing what they come up with next. More importantly, though, I wish I could go to your RCN conference. You seem to be doing an amazing service for the industry and actually building an ecosystem that most people just aren't doing for themselves. You're actually building interest. And so earlier you had made a comment about, always be, figuring out at least what's industry standard, as, maybe not being bleeding edge. We were talking about like maybe tagging this somehow in the training that you're doing. I think being able to kind of give people an insight of what is industry standard on, and at any snapshot is probably the biggest thing you can do. Like, because anybody will share technology like, oh, this is what we're doing. but you're using this in a really extreme circumstance that doesn't apply to what we're doing. Or you're actually 5 years behind the curve. We're actually doing this. How do we make this the next step? You showing them on your platform, your network, through your, through LinkedIn, whatever it is, showing them how to actually get to that next step and showing them, hey, look, this is actually what today's standard is. It's going to be pretty impactful.
Yeah. Ultimately that's become my goal is, I have been deep in the technical of doing these things, of scanners and drones and data and BIM. And I really now have the goal of educating and empowering other people. Like, I want to be able to help companies because I see the growth. I see that even though I've been scanning for 12 years, I think only 10% of the market is scanning. I think there is so much room for expansion, more volume, more companies. And so I look back and I'm like, somebody, with this experience should start gathering, experts, and let's create a process to educate and build this industry proactively instead of, one company at a time and they don't know where to learn from. We can help kind of guide that process and say, here are the use cases, here are the ROIs, here are the, workflows and the gear that should be used for that type of industry. So it's really cool to see the community come behind it and support it, and that it's actually, building. It's helping companies, it's helping individuals. Part of what really drives me and makes me excited to do what I'm doing is getting personal messages and text messages of people that are like, man, I just listened to that podcast episode, that talked about like mindset and encouragement and passion. And it really lit me on fire. And like, I'm excited to go to work. Thank you. Or we heard you have that presentation at your conference where you brought in a panel and they talked about survey and we didn't even know that was important. And that explains why we've been having issues. And hearing those responses of like, something you're doing is making a difference for other people in the industry, and it's actually changing their perspective, changing the way they do business. That's exciting. So that's why I'm excited.
That's the only way to really evangelize stuff in my mind, is because you're making a positive impact, and you are definitely making a positive impact. I followed you long before I have connected with you, and your story, I knew about your car accident early on. Like, you've got a very passionate drive for this sort of stuff, and I love it, man. I think we're just over 2 hours in right now. Now it's probably a good time to wrap it up. But that said, I look forward to future conversations. I actually look forward to attending the RCN and maybe not this year, but next year, and kind of go. Dave and I, like, we love scanning, we love BIM. We're deep into the tech. We are nerds for this stuff, and the stuff you share is pivotal, man. I look forward to seeing what you do next.
Yeah, I really appreciate you guys inviting me on and the feedback, giving people feedback. I'll even throw that out, for you guys too, right? Giving people feedback when you see them and you like what they're doing, giving some encouragement to people through something as simple as that. Just saying like, hey, I've been seeing what you're doing. Keep it up. It's making a difference. Like, that makes you excited. Do you guys like when people reach out and tell you, right? Like,
Oh yeah.
So,
monetarily, I'm not a billionaire, but you know what? When you tell me I'm on the right path, dude, it makes me feel like $1 billion. That's great.
Yeah, exactly. So I like giving everybody that feedback, on top of the technical. Just again, this goes back to everything else we talked about, the authentic relationship building. Like, take the time to see those around you, see what they're doing, interact, show support where you can, even if it's not monetary, even if it's not going to the event. Like, send them a message, comment. For you guys, for me, interact on their social posts. That helps them spread their message and what they're trying to do and get their podcast or your podcast out. So care about the people around you, be passionate about what you're doing, and don't be afraid of innovation. I think those are my ending keynotes there.
Awesome. Perfect closing notes, man. I love it.
Well, I appreciate your guys' time. Let me come on and share with you. Look forward to continuing to follow what you guys do, enjoying the podcast, and we'll definitely have to get you out, because anybody who likes BIM and scanners and technology would definitely enjoy hanging out at our event with everyone else who geeks out over it.